Our next presentation is our keynote, and we will be welcoming Helen Patton, who is the Chief Information Security Officer at Cybersecurity. And she's going to be talking about cybersecurity, new issues, old problems. Welcome, Helen.
Good morning. I'm Helen Patton. I am currently the CISO at Cisco Secure at Cisco because I can't have the word security or Cisco in my title too many times. I've been at Cisco about 3 years. Before that, I was 8 years the CISO at The Ohio State University. And before that, I was 10 years at JP Morgan. So I've gone from big finance to research to big tech. And I was really delighted to be able to come and talk to you today. Some caveats. I'm probably not going to tell you anything you don't already know this morning. I would like to think I'm going to drop pearls of wisdom on you, but I'm probably not. So grab your coffee, just hang with me for a little bit. The second thing is, when I was in finance, I was really ticked that investment bankers didn't give two hoots about cybersecurity. It annoyed me. And then I went to higher ed, and I got really annoyed that researchers didn't give two hoots about cybersecurity. And now I'm at Cisco in the security business group. And guess what? They don't really give two hoots about cybersecurity either. Cisco didn't tell you that. No, they do care about security, but they don't know what it means to do security, right? And this is a common theme through finance and OSU and research and even the tech sector. The reason for them living is not cyber. And yet here we are being responsible for helping them, I'm going to swear, give a shit about cybersecurity, right? So what I want to talk about today is a little bit of history because this is a 10th anniversary and you don't do 10th anniversary keynotes without going back in time. I want to talk about what it's like to be a security practitioner for an organization. How many of you consider yourselves a security practitioner defending your organization? Anyone? Some? Most? Yeah. Let's, we're going to explore that, and I want to explore a little bit about how do you keep up with tech changes. Okay? So that's what we're going to talk about. There will be an audience participation piece to this. So I want to start with a story, because it's a keynote. There's always stories in a keynote. I spent 10 years at JP Morgan, and it's a Wall Street bank, and it's an international bank. And in the cybersecurity realm, people often look at the financial sector as sort of the creme de la creme of security stuff. Because they've got a lot of money, because they're attacked a lot, right? So I was living in Columbus, Ohio. I wasn't doing the New York thing or the London thing. I was living in Ohio, where I still live now. But I thought, wow, you know, this is 10 years at JP Morgan. One, this looks really great on my resume, and two, I know stuff. Finance, I know stuff. And life happened, and I had a middle schooler who didn't like me traveling all over the world so much, and I needed a job where I didn't travel as much, and wouldn't you know it, the CISO job at Ohio State came open, and I took it. And I'm thinking, I went to Ohio State, kids in classrooms, football, arguably. I get it. This is going to be easy peasy. We are not attacked. Huh. Yeah, how hard can it be? So I arrive, and for those of you who don't, anyone been to Ohio State? Any Buckeyes in the room? Everyone's like, no. Yeah, I get it. It's sort of big, right? In terms of any number of measures, it's one of the big three in the US. And I show up, and I'm thinking like a security person. So when you start a new program, you think, what do I have to care about? What's important? What's the president going to care about? What's the provost going to care about? Oh, yeah, what are students going to care about? But that's sort of secondary, right? So there was a woman, her name was Jamie, and she was the facilities manager, and quite nicely she offered to take me on a tour of campus. Okay, so we start off at the Student Information Centre, and I'm thinking, yep, student data, FERPA, data protection, confidentiality, check, got it, yep. Okay, but you know, Helen, there's finance there, so we're regulated like a bank. Okay, student data, FERPA, check, GLBA, finance data, check, got it. Okay, driving down the road, what's that? It's a hotel. And what's that? It's the football stadium, 100,000 people any given Sunday. In the stadium, 50,000 people tailgating outside. So we sell retail stuff? Yes. PCI? Yes. Retail? Okay, check. FERPA? Check. GLBA? Check. PCI? Check. Okay. Driving a little bit further down, student union and the dorms. Huh, who knew? When school is in session and there is a football game going on in the stadium, we're something like the 15th largest city in the United States. Who'd have thought? Life safety, heating, cooling. How do we do heating and cooling at OSU? Oh, we've got our own steam generator. Fabulous, critical infrastructure. Good-o. Okay, FERPA, critical infrastructure. We go to the hospital, 1 of 8, by the way. Hospital, crap, medical data, life safety, HIPAA. Okay, I'm okay. We drive out to West Campus, airport. What the heck? Airport? FAA, critical infrastructure. Okay, fine. Bird Polar Research Centre brings new meaning to the word availability when you're talking about 200-year-old ice cores. Heating, cooling, critical infrastructure. Heating, cooling, fine. And then she goes, oh, and here's the nuclear reactor. I'm like, what the heck? What's my priority here? What do you care about first? Is it student data? No. Is it life safety? Probably, but whose? The patients? The animals at the vet hospital? The DNA? Oh, well, maybe it's one of our level 4 biohazard labs. Maybe I have to worry about anthrax. What? Right? One of the joys of working in security is that we touch everything. One of the problems about working in security is we got to worry about freaking everything. So, okay, so this is what we're dealing with. It made working in higher ed and research really fun. And I didn't sleep a lot. I just want to sort of point out. Here's the thing, we talk to our new, how many students are in the room? I saw some students go by. We've got some students. Awesome, glad you are here. Notice that we've got this aging problem in cybersecurity. We've got either lots of really young students or we've got people about to retire. You notice this? Yeah, glad you're here. One of the things that we talk to students about in college is that this is such a dynamic field. Things are changing all the time. This is new. Cybersecurity is new. We in this room know that cybersecurity is not new. There's a book, I would recommend you read it, by Mikko Hyppönen. Just came out, this one. It's called If It's Smart, It's Vulnerable. I'm going to be quoting Mikko a lot in this talk. He goes into the history, so I'm going to do some history and I'm quoting Mikko, if you're wondering where I'm getting my sources from, because we do research, right? Everyone cares about sources. Let's put a line in the sand and say 1969, internet was born. Anyone around in 1969? Anyone want to own that? Couple. I wasn't born yet and I'm over 50. When you're excited about new tech, this is what history looks like. Do you all remember these things? ARPANET, the late 60s. 1980s, Al Gore advocates for some $600 million worth of research into networking, right? Which in the 1990s resulted in Mosaic, among other things. How many of you remember these things on this timeline? Well, some of you will remember some of it. Public clouds. We're living the dream of public clouds right now. How's public clouds working for your research environments? Anyone using public clouds for their research environments? Out of curiosity, couple? Yeah. Containers. There's some really interesting stuff here, right? Our world has changed. It's exciting. This is how security looks at it. Holy shit. Social engineering has been around for forever. I hear there was some lockpicking being done yesterday. Is anyone part of that? That was fun, I hear. Cleopatra was doing social engineering. It's been around for a while. But sticking with the 60s, this is 50 years worth of history here. New technology to a security person looks like this. Malware, malware, worm, 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 virus, virus, virus. More social engineering. More recently, some ransomware, commoditized weirdness. SolarWinds Log4j. Stuxnet. Stuxnet's a fun one. Am I missing anything? Any other worries from the security people in the room? It's not on the timeline. So we've got this problem, right? In security, we love the new tech. We love the new innovation that's coming out of the research community. And it means more work and more heartburn and more stress for everything new they think about. And it's our jobs to try and think and defend against whatever that thing is. So what is changing about the technology environment? I'm guessing for as many people as there are in the room, there's a different opinion about what's new and exciting. So I'm going to go to my old sore, Gartner. Gartner, where you can pay to tell someone you're innovating. Anyone from Gartner in the room? Okay, good. Whew. Okay, so this is the hype cycle for emerging tech for 2022. You can see it. Here's the thing. No one really knows what's emerging. I mean, we have some ideas. We'll keep an eye on it. But whether it's really meaningful or not, who knows? When I was at Ohio State, I was doing my master's in public policy with a focus on tech. And my stats lecturer got a job with the NSF. And I went, congratulations on your job. And he's going, well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. I said, why not? He said, well, I'm being asked to go and try and justify the spend of the NSF in terms of the value of the research that comes out of the NSF, which is sort of an important thing. From a public policy perspective, if we're going to spend tax dollars on research, you would like to think we get something for our money. And I went, well, that makes sense. And he goes, no, it doesn't. I'm like, excuse me, what? And he said, well, if you think about the magnets, I was talking about magnets this morning, think about the magnets that were created like 30 years ago. It wasn't until something like 30 years later that we realized the application of those magnets in MRI machines. So how do you justify the spend on the research of the magnet if you don't know what it's going to be used for? And when we think about emerging tech, one of the challenges of the security group is that tech can be great, but we don't know what it's going to be used for or how it's going to be used, right? So Gartner's got some ideas. I'll break down the eye chart for you. This is the gist of it. And can you tell I did not do my accessibility training because I don't have good contrast there? Sorry about that. Immersive experiences, decentralized identity, digital twins, Web3. As a security person with a background in I&AM, and a shout out to all the Internet 2 people in the room, decentralized identity scared the bejesus out of me. Decentralized identity in this context is identities on the blockchain. There's two terms you don't want to put together very easily. Identity on the blockchain that individuals can use to assert their identity into systems so that groups like Google and Facebook don't have to own your identity. Sounds like a great idea. It's working on the assumption that the blockchain is immutable. Data on the blockchain is immutable. Is it? Do we know? Does anyone here in the room know? I'm sort of curious. Does anyone have an opinion about this? Is data on the blockchain immutable? Right. Context is everything. Thank you. Yes. Can it be modified without permission? Let's go simple here for a second. Can data on the blockchain be modified without permission? Yes. So if that is the definition of immutable, are decentralized identities immutable? Maybe. Is the average Joe Schmo citizen able to use that technology? Not yet. Gartner would tell you it's emerging. We don't know how it's going to be used yet. But as a security person, groups like Gartner are saying identity on the blockchain, it's a thing, it's coming. And guess what? Identity is one of the core elements of any security program anywhere. So what do we do about that as security professionals? What do we have to do to prepare for that day when that thing is monetized? So it's immersive experience. Digital twins. Is anyone running a digital twin yet? Not yet? Digital twins in its simplest form. And by the way, I guarantee I'm going to say something where you're going to go, Helen has no idea what she's talking about, and you're probably right. I'm just going to throw that out there. Digital twins, in this context, are digital copies of something that's physical so that you can do research in those environments, or you could otherwise learn about those environments in a way you couldn't do in the real world. You might want to do a digital twin of a military base because you want to see what happens if you blow up a missile on a military base, but you don't actually want to blow up a missile on a military base. Digital twin would be a great thing to use for that. Or you might want to use a digital twin of your campus so that we can pretend how easy it is to try and get self-driving vehicles to drive around on campus when you've got kids on bikes and roller skates and whatever. But what else is a problem from a security perspective with a digital twin? Anyone want to give me an idea of something that might give you a bit of heartburn if you're a security person? Unauthorized access to information, yeah. Why? Why is that a problem? Right, it becomes yet another threat surface that can be attacked, right? It becomes another piece of data. The more data you have, the more at risk you are. So if we're going to do digital twins everywhere, now I not only have to protect the actual thing, I've got to protect the digital twin as well. I've got double the work as a security person when there's a digital twin. If we don't get things right? AI. I'm wondering if AI is the thing I have to worry about next. I don't know. Is anyone here worried about AI? Couple? It's like, there's a lot of tech companies that are like already telling you they're selling AI. I would argue that they're really selling really fast machine learning, but that's conversation for over a beer maybe. But AI, what could go wrong if AI really happens in an environment? Let's say I buy a product that uses AI to learn more about my customers. What's the security problem there? Anyone? We might not know. Depending on the algorithm, we might not know. So I don't know enough to be dangerous with AI. One of the things I'm worried about is if AI actually starts getting to the point where it's making decisions without governance, is artificial intelligence just a new form of insider threat that we have to worry about? And is that any different than human insider threat or not? Maybe. I don't know yet, right? And then optimized tech. I don't know about this one. This one feels a little bit like Gartner Schmartner to me. It's like cybersecurity mesh architecture, and platform engineering. More to come on this, but they're essentially saying, if we're going to do security really well, you've got to integrate your security tech. That's not really that radical, is it? It's hard to do, which I think is why it's on the emerging tech list. But it's not a new concept. So we have these emerging things, right? And as a security person, trying to protect our environments, whether they're research environments or schools or businesses, these are some of the things that are coming down the pipe, and we have to think about, are we ready? Pick your word cloud of choice. We're not really ready for any of it. We're not really ready for any of it. We can't keep up with the shit we've got, let alone the shit that's coming. Here's the thing, and this makes us really fun at parties, but not so welcomed in the office. We are always thinking about the counterfactual because we have to. So we're thinking about things like, okay, what was the intent of the tech? Whatever it is, iPhones, AirTags, the latest Apple feature that will tell you if you're in a car crash, unless you're actually on a roller coaster, and then it will still dial 911. How's the tech intended to be used? How's it going to actually be used? When we rolled out multi-factor authentication at Ohio State, I was so proud. We rolled out Duo, and everyone loved me. They send me Christmas cards every year thanking me for the joy of using multi-factor authentication. I had a really creative, it's always the computer science department, I had a really creative CS student who created an algorithm that would just answer the phone and press 1 and shared it on Reddit so the OSU community could use it. So no one had to bother with that pesky MFA anymore because the phone would just automatically answer and press 1. Great. Sort of missed the point of having MFA. But it made perfect sense to the student. They didn't want to be bothered. They found a way around it. Good for them. So the next time Duo rolls out the next step in multi-factor authentication, which will be authenticated authentication, work with me now, you can blame students like the student at OSU for things like that. How's it actually going to be used? What's the impact on the threat profile if we use it? What's the impact of the digital twin on our threat profile, on our threat surface? Does it add risk or does it take it away? Technology is amoral. Tech doesn't care how it's used, but we do because we're human. So we have to think about that. So how do we think about it? I love Miko. Who played Tetris? Anyone remember playing Tetris? Yeah, welcome to security. Yeah, your successes disappear, but your failures pile up. Welcome to the community, by the way. So Cisco and Scientia Institute did a study. This is 2 years ago. They've done one ever since the third one's about to come out. And we asked, what made a successful security program? And this was asked in a double-blind study. The participants didn't know it was Cisco asking the questions. Cisco didn't know who was being asked. You all know double-blind. And we asked, what made a good security program? And what activities lead to a good security program? And the three things you see on the left are the things that lead to a good security program. You'll notice this is very sort of not researchy, not educationally researchy aligned. This is a lot of private sector companies or publicly traded companies. But three things, I think we can get on board with this. Enabling the business, managing risk, and operating efficiently are the three outcomes that this group of, I think it was over 1,400 folks, generally thought represented good security programs. When you're supporting the infrastructure of a research lab, are these the outcomes that you're shooting for? Does this feel right? Not right? This is actually a legitimate question. Does this feel like outcomes that you would use to measure your program? Anyone? I'm getting some nods, maybe. Sorry? Change business to research, right. So enabling research, for sure. Yep. So the things on the right are the practices that statistically, measurably made a difference in a positive way in a security program. You can all read. Proactive tech refresh was the #1 thing. The older the tech, the less secure it likely is. Did I hear the word Fortran earlier? We talk a lot about tech debt. Tech debt costs us more to run, but it also makes us less secure, right? So whether you have a security program or not, keeping your technology as up to date as it can be is going to help with the security outcomes of your program. This is hard when we're inviting students and researchers to bring their old piece of shit from home and log into our networks, right? So thinking about what is current is a thing to think about. What would be the minimum version of operating system you would allow on your network? I speak for most medical institutions when they're just fine with Windows 95, which is 25-year-old technology now. Sort of old, sort of not that secure as it turns out. Proactive tech refresh, #1. Well-integrated tech. This is well-integrated security tech. This is where we bump into problems with the research environments, right? Often the things that are used in commercial environments to secure an environment will make our research environments fail. So we can't integrate the tech. But to the extent that we can, we should. Timely incident response. And I'm actually going to link the next two together. Incident response and disaster recovery. Disaster recovery is more than backups, but sometimes that's the only tool in your toolbox, right? Incident response. Can I tell you the thing that slows incident response down until we invent some really great artificial intelligence is people and process. Running tabletop exercises with your researchers, with your leaders in your organizations is probably the thing that you can do the most to improve outcomes if you're going to have an event. Does anyone here not, now let me ask the question a different way. Who here is doing tabletop exercises with their folks around security incidents? Yeah, some? Yeah. I think there's a talk about it somewhere on the agenda. Did I miss that? There is? Yeah. If you're not doing tabletop events, go to that talk. It's well worth doing. I did a tabletop exercise with the folks at Ohio State, the president, provost, that cabinet. It included the head of the medical center. And the scenario was that we had a malware event that took down administrative systems at the hospital that then transferred over to take out the security systems of the doors on campus. And you would think that would not be a big deal, but it's sort of a big deal in terms of who's allowed into buildings. Do they fail open? Do they fail closed? Where do they go if they can't get into a building? How long, what do we have to give them if we make them stay in place? I mean, the follow-on questions of just door systems opening and closing is sort of a big deal when you've got people who live in the office. But the question was, the reason I did the tabletop exercise was I wanted to know what they cared about. Because whatever they care about, that's what they're going to focus on during a crisis, and they're not going to focus on anything else. And they all said the right thing. Guess what they said they cared about? Life safety. Of course, life safety. And again, in a university research environment, whose life safety? Patients, students, DNA, biomaterials, animals, research animals, vet animals. Oh, by the way, they did seem to remember staff somewhere on the list. Not interesting conversation. It was not the first life they cared about, but if they didn't have staff, they wouldn't be able to protect the other lives. So which staff gets priority really? Right? Tabletop exercise, do it. And then accurate threat detection. Getting context around where threats are coming from is really important if you're going to be able to recover. So there are some studies out there about how to do security that I would encourage you to look at. But here's the thing, every time we introduce new tech into the environment, these things go out the window. So proactive tech refresh. Okay. Does this mean every time, like, here's what happens on university campuses. Christmas happens, and that following January, we get a 2x increase in the number of new devices that are on our network. And about 25% of them we've never seen before. So does that mean every Christmas I've got to refresh my tech, refresh my scanning capabilities, refresh my endpoint detection and response tools? Like, how do I stay on top of that? Google Glass, I don't know what it is now. What are you all buying your kids for Christmas this year? Something to think about. It's really hard. So I was trying to find an image that looked like somebody all bashed up and bandaged. This is as close as I got that was usable. Well-integrated tech. It's hard to integrate security tech into new emerging tech. What's my security tech to deal with quantum computing? Anyone? Is anyone researching that? Oh, thank God. Tell me when you've got an answer. Because commercially, we haven't got anything yet. Right? How do I do incident response around AI algorithms? And by the way, from a security perspective, it's not just getting us back and running again. We've also got to be able to show evidence so that when our very federal agencies come in and they want to get attribution of which nation state it was that did the attack, we've got the evidence to show them so they can do that forensics. Forensics on artificial intelligence algorithms? Anyone doing research on that? You get the idea. All right. There are some ways to deal with this. So I'm going to give you 3 or 4 frameworks to think about that might help you think about this. Because the answer is we don't know yet for emerging tech what the answer is. But there might be some ways for us to think about it. There's this matrix. There's a book. There's a website called the Cyber Defense Matrix. My friend Sunil Yu, who was a chief security scientist and CISO in a variety of places, created this. You'll notice the functional areas along the top look a lot like the NIST framework, right? Identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And on the horizontal, the kinds of asset classes we deal with. Is artificial intelligence an application? Is it data? Is it something else? So classification, and by the way, NIST sucks at classification. When you look at the definitions for identify and protect and detect, they overlap one another. So the definition of detect is the ability to identify stuff on the network. Isn't that identify? You get the idea, right? So they're sort of half pregnant with their definitions, a little bit. You can use this framework, though, however you define it, to classify it. And Neil created this framework to try and make sense of all the products that were on the market. This slide, by the way, is about 5 years old. Notice the propensity for identification and protection solutions because they're technology-based. Notice the paucity of solutions around recovery, because guess what? Recovery has a higher dependency on people and process, and it's harder to wrap a tool around it, and it's really hard to make money on a process. It's really easy to make money on a tool. But let's for a moment suggest that AI is an application. Are any of the tools in this box around identifying that AI or putting controls to protect the AI, will any of these solutions take care of that? Probably not. Not these solutions anyway. There might be some new stuff coming out, and we need to, as security professionals, we need to keep an eye on that. But you can use this framework to do this kind of analysis, right? What do I think this new technology is? What are the current solutions available to me that sit in these areas? And do they satisfy the needs of the controls and the protections we need? Because by the way, regulation always lags behind innovation. So you're not going to be regulated to do this. You're not going to be told you must. The question is, do you have a risk profile that you should do this? And this framework can help you. Anyone here not heard of the MITRE ATT&CK framework? If the cyber defense matrix is about defense, the MITRE ATT&CK framework is about putting yourself in the shoes of the attacker and looking for ways into your environment using these particular kinds of techniques. So you might look at something like, I don't know, identity on the blockchain, and sort of run your own mental red teaming around, if I had an identity on the blockchain, how might it be accessed? How might I do privilege escalation on that identity if I needed to? How might I use a blockchain identity to move laterally through an environment, right? The MITRE ATT&CK framework is a really great way of thinking about the techniques that attackers use and then aligning the new tech to it to see if there are solutions to put controls around it. This is an eye chart, I know. You can go to the MITRE ATT&CK website and you will see these. For each of those elements in the attack framework, it lists the different techniques that are used to attack an environment. And so you can take that new tech and think about how it fits into the environment. If you're not into defense frameworks or offense frameworks, you can use the business framework. And this is a Welsh name, and I'm going to mangle it because I'm Australian and not Welsh. I call it the Cynefin framework. Am I pronouncing that right? Does anyone know? Close enough. I've got the microphone. Let's call it the Cynefin framework. The Cynefin framework is used to decide what you know about a thing. So if this is common, this thing is common. Ransomware is common. We know what ransomware is. We know how it works. There should be clear processes, tools, and techniques to deal with ransomware. Best practice. You should be doing best practice for ransomware. If you care about ransomware, maybe you don't, but if you do, you should do best practice because it's out there. On the other hand, when it comes to controlling artificial intelligence, we don't know anything about it really yet, so it's probably chaotic in terms of what we can do. So right now, we're just going to watch and wait and see and maybe try things. And dare I tell the research community, you might want to experiment with how you can control that particular problem known as artificial intelligence or whatever it is, right? The point of the Cynefin framework is to try to identify where it fits so that you can have a sense of where you can go to get resources to help. If you identify something as being chaotic, chances are you're on your own. And I would look to groups like the NSF to help us sense through what we can do about it. It's emerging. Anything else, you can sort of work your way anti-clockwise around that framework, right? The more you know about it, the more likely there is a solution, the more likely there is a best practice. Okay? Some things to think about. Here's my concern. Our researchers aren't thinking about the counterfactual when they're creating new stuff. They're not paid to. We don't ask them to. We're going to need to start asking them to. We need them to help us as security professionals answer these questions. They may not know, and that's okay, but they still need to see if they have the answers to any of these questions, because if they do, it puts us as defenders that much further ahead. So how might we go about doing this? Finding ways to include the security practitioners in their research. I don't know if anyone here is from NSF where they're issuing grants. Can we ask for that kind of participation in a grant team, please? That would be good. The other thing is, going back to a previous point, what is risky and whether or not we choose to do something about it is really contextual to the organisation you're a part of. So we need our researchers to be thinking really broadly about the context in which their tech is going to be used. And it has to be multidisciplinary. It's not just about the tech, it's about the people who are using it. It's about the processes that are followed while that tech's being used, right? So we need to make sure that the research that is coming out of our research groups are as contextual across disciplines, across legal, across philosophy, across